So this is how we may all be feeling and experiencing the current times, this growing sense of self, of emerging selfhood, of new expressions of the self, finding new courage in the self, being poised, counterbalanced against the huge wheels of change that are turning, that we can feel all around us. I'm thinking of those old fairground rides. There was the cakewalk, where the floor was moving under you. And I think we'd have to put in the Hall of Mirrors at the same time. So we're cakewalking and we're getting the Hall of Mirrors. We can't see what's emerging. So yes, we do have to find our courage and just feel our way here, I think. Well, what epoch-marking times we are living through, and I think we can all feel this. I'm astrologer Linda Wood and tarot card reader, and I'm here to bring you my take on the Leo new moon, which is on the 24th of July here in the UK at about 11 minutes past 8 o'clock in the evening. You will need to adjust for your time zone if you're somewhere different from that. So the sun and the moon together in the sign of Leo, and the sun is our ego, our identity, how we present ourselves, and the moon is our inner emotional nature. So two key aspects of us as human beings are together at this new moon, as they are at all new moons. But the difference is this is in Leo, which is very much a sign about finding the self, individuating, being the self, being unafraid to be and present the self, finding courage, finding strength, finding heart. And in my opinion, the early degrees of signs are not the weak degrees of signs. Obviously, I think the first hit of a planet into a sign is sometimes the strongest signature there. So I think this is a powerful notion of finding the self, embodying the self, being the self in a very heartfelt way, because Leo is very much the heart, the inner being, the feelings. So that's our sun and moon. But I've got to dive in straight away. I have called this, we meet our destiny. Because the sun and the moon in my UK chart are in the 6th house. So Leo is in the 6th house. And this is the house of everyday activities, of routines, of our everyday living, if you like, of the earthy, daily, day in, day out living that we do. In fact, most of what our life is about, I would say. But it is also, as well as being a house of health and apprenticeships and all those sorts of things, mentorings, it is also the house of service. It is often from the 6th house that there is something that we serve in society. There is something that we give out from the self that is of service for the greater good, for the community. So we have a message here. The sun, the moon, new beginning in Leo, finding ourselves, being ourselves, embodying the self, sovereignty. But in the 6th house, of bringing that in some way into service. And that's very interesting. Let me jump right in here to the biggie, to the thing that is really energizing astrological readings of this new moon. And that is that Pluto, that great planet of slow but inevitable transformation, transmutation and change, is opposing our sun and moon in Leo. So we have Pluto in Aquarius in the 12th house forming an opposition. Now, Pluto is incredibly powerful. It also, the god Pluto had the helmet of invisibility, so we often don't see it coming. We don't quite understand how it's hitting and which way it's hitting. There can be many, many signatures that this can have. Certainly, a strong one would be that this is the point of our evolution. This is our drive forward. This is the inevitable motoring forward into the age of Aquarius. And Aquarius is about the collective. It's not about me, it's about we. So we can see that the collective destiny is opposing there the sun and moon in Leo, which are desperate for this individuation, for this selfhood, for this embodiment there. Now, this could easily manifest in our world on the outer stage with all of the actors we have fretting and stuffing and fretting and, shuffling their brief time on stage, that individual people could be opposed by tyrannical power. I mean, that is a signature this could have. It is as if an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. So oppositions are exactly what the name says, they're opposite. They're polarities against each other. They're pulling in different directions. And the idea is not to have either or, but to have both and. And of course, that takes some doing. That is a process of integration, of synthesis. But that's what we have to think about. So in some ways, I think that this new moon in Leo opposite Pluto, before we go into the other richness and complications of the chart, but just that in itself gives us this idea of the hero's journey. It is the emerging heroic journey of the self in service from the 6th house to the collective. I think we're on a bumpy ride, and I think that, like Ulysses, we're going to have to strap ourselves to the mast, find our courage, and go forward. I think that is the signature of this moon. It isn't to let go of that precious selfhood or to ignore the inevitable and good move towards a collective. It's to marry the two, make the two work together. It must seem sometimes as if astrologers are overstating the case for exactly how momentous the times that we're living through are. But with all of the outer planets, which are those planets which speak to generational changes, to large periods of time, to collective destiny, all having changed signs and being positioned in the very early degrees of their new signs. There is no doubt that we're at a point of beginning something completely new, a new age, a new time, and that we are overthrowing the old. Now, all new moons are beginning points as well, and this new moon happens to be at just 2 degrees of Leo, and obviously because it's a new moon, it is with the sun, also at 2 degrees of Leo. So a new moon at a very young degree, a powerful indicator of beginnings, of the start of something. and also hovering around 2 degrees, 1 degree, 2 degrees. We have Pluto, we have Neptune, we have Saturn, we have Uranus. Everybody lined up there. It is as if we're on starters, orders, ready for this race to begin. The race has begun, With the exception of Venus and Mars, which I'll come to in a moment or two, all of the outer planets are in an interconnected web with the Sun and the Moon and Pluto. It's like energy running along a grid that's all lit up. So, everything's flowing here, everything is interconnected, and it works. There is a way that this works, it functions, it's the energy is running around the aspect grid here. We have lots of sextiles, trines, and connection. And this really tells us yet again that these times are happening, these times are changing. This is all the energy that surrounds us. Uranus, the planet of shocks, surprises, breakthrough, breakdown, all of those things, but also of illumination, of awakening. The wake-up planet is, in this chart, in Gemini in the 4th house. And this shows how with Gemini, all of our communications, our ideas, learning, facts are being shaken up, they're being changed. And this is right at a root level. This, will feel both exciting and a little disturbing in equal measure. It will be both. It will be excitement and, oh my goodness, what's happening? Things will be moving so quickly, and the foundations are shaking. The foundations of our thought, the foundations of how we perceive the world, of the knowledge that we have of the world and our communications, all of those foundations are being jumbled up and shaken and torn apart and reassembled in great lightning flashes at the moment. So again, this can add to that feeling of disturbance that we may be feeling. Venus, the planet of what we value, our desires, our enjoyments, our self-worth, is also in Gemini. And its ruler, Mercury, is in Leo. It's at 13 and some minutes degrees of Leo. So not exactly on top of the Sun and Moon, but very much in the same sign. Now, Mercury in Leo wants to express. It wants to get out there and wants to be heard. It wants to be heard in broad brushstroke ways. It may not always be fact-checking. It is more interested in telling a story than actually looking at hard fact. So it can also brag a little. It can be grandiose. It can be big talk. It can be dramatic. So we should be watching out again for big dramatic talk coming to us either from world leaders or from us people in our own lives, or even from ourselves, because there will be this impulse to big things up and dramatize, maybe brag. And then I think Venus in Gemini, there could be a slight tendency going on to sweeten the pill, sugar on a knife. Let's sort of massage the facts a little here, make it all seem nice and acceptable in the communications. I mean, that's a negative interpretation. Obviously, there are other ways of looking at it, but it's a possible, and I want us to be thinking about it because I am thinking about the power aspects of Pluto, the power over aspects that are also possible with this chart. But opposing Venus in Gemini and right up by the south node is Mars in Virgo. Now, Mars in Virgo is a refined Mars. It's about precision. It's surgical. Mars in Virgo, if it attacks, it will be in a measured way and it will be totally strategic and laser focused. That is the kind of energy of Mars in Virgo. People always talk about it as nitpicking. Yeah, in its lowest forms, that's definitely possible. But let's look at it as a very useful, refined, precision force that it can be. It's not sloppy, that's for sure. And that Mars in Virgo conjuncted the South Node, also in Virgo, obviously, on the 18th of July, just some days prior to this moon. Now, Mars in Virgo is going to be discriminating. It's not going to allow fudging over facts. It's going to penetrate through false talk, if you like. It's going to discriminate. Virgo is a sign that separates the wheat from the chaff. It also separates what's useful. And with this strong Pluto here opposing Sun and Moon, I can't help but feel that discriminating Mars right on the South Node, which is what we must release, is a symbol of elimination. It's what's got to go. And it's offering us this chance to separate the lies from the facts, the wheat from the chaff, that which is valuable and that which is not, and get rid of what doesn't serve us, both personally and also collectively. It is a purging. It's something that is needful for us to do as part of this onwards journey. And of course, it can be disturbing to release things, because even if they're not in our best interest, they're familiar. And we tend to cling on to the familiar, don't we? But there are things that must go and be released in order for the new to come in. And I think we have to clear the decks here. We cannot go into entropy. We have to grow, we have to evolve, we have to move forward. And just as in daily life, we have to clear out stuff in order to do so. Now, to add into the mix, I've already spoken a little bit about Mercury in Leo, but Mercury in Leo is retrograde. So there may be this sense of going over, re-examining words that have been spoken, things that have been said, issues that are not yet put to rest, may be re-examined, explored again, brought out again. This will be a time of revising, reviewing, revisiting. But it's not just Mercury that's retrograde. And of course, there are the need for us to pay attention to detail whenever Mercury is retrograde. And I think Mars in Virgo will be of great assistance there. We can't put our lives on hold because Mercury is retrograde. We have to travel, we have to do things, we have to function, but we just need to dot the I's, cross the T's, pay attention. It's not a time not to read the small print. We must do all of that. But Mercury isn't the only planet that is retrograde. Pluto is retrograde, and Neptune and Saturn in the early stages of Aries are also retrograde, and they have been dissolving and rebuilding, and I'm just seeing plasma moving in and out of form here with those two together, but they also are backtracking. In a way, I think this is a blessing. On the one hand, it means that for our personal plans, we may be dreaming them into being now. We may be feeling ourselves moving ahead, but we have some time to get it right for ourselves. And the same for the events that are coming up. So there is here some sense of going back over, of reviewing, revisiting, covering ground again. And of course, if you have had any of those planets passing over key points in your own chart, they could well be passing back over them again and then back over them again when they eventually go direct. So this can really be a focus point in your natal chart if you are aware of where those planets are moving and where the transits are happening for you. May well be worth having a look at that. So that is another factor to bring in here. With Uranus in Gemini, with the kind of speed that moves at, and everything is very speedy, it has to be said, I think this retrogradation, this take a look again, have a look again, check it out again, be sure, evaluate, reevaluate, review, revise, rethink. I think all of that can be very, very useful. So I'm afraid I can't tell you that this is a time when the pressure is off, because certainly there's plenty of pressure on at this moment in time. That's for sure. And it is also, with the retrogradation, unlikely to be a time when there are resolutions. I don't think that is very likely. I think we're very much in process here. But I think our key message is we have to be ready for it, because we are meeting our destiny. And I do think that our choices as individuals, our faith in ourselves as individuals, and our determination to hold steady to that has never been more important and never been more necessary to play into the situation. So let's remember that Leo, where our sun and moon are, is a fixed fire sign. And let's be glad of the fixity there, and of the fact that that flame of Leo, that fire of Leo, is steady. And let's keep that flame burning, because these are times of meeting our destiny, and we are the ones that meet it. So that's our way forward, folks, I believe. I'm going to leave the video there. There's more, always, always more. But I think the essential messages that I am getting from it, I have covered here. So let's see how things unfold. Grasp the metal, and I will see you in the next video. So goodbye, and lots of love to you all.